back to the Building Your Brand podcast. Now, I hope you can't hear this, but it currently sounds like my washing machine is about to take off downstairs. So, hopefully, with a bit of editing, I will be able to get rid of that sound. But today, I want to talk to you a little bit about my business and what I love about it, and some observations that I've had recently. It's December. I'm in sort of reflective mode. Next week, I will be recording my last solo episode of the year and sort of reflecting on how things have gone. But one of the things that I was thinking about the other day is, I guess, as I was thinking about goals for my business, is how much I love the way I've constructed my business. And I wanted to talk through what it is I love about it. And I think where some of the temptations have been to go in a certain direction that wasn't really right for me. So I remember, I think it was a couple of years ago now, chatting to someone who worked for a huge company, and they were sort of talking to me about if I would ever want to get a job, at a big company, almost as though they expected that that was my goal. And it was really interesting because what I remember thinking was I actually have got to the point in my business now where I feel more security and more safety in my freelance work than I think I would if I had a job at a company. Now, obviously, there are pros and cons to both, and I am not anti working for someone else. I did it for a really long time in my career, and I know that there are loads of benefits to that. And I know for other people, that does feel like a really safe and secure option. I think for me, I've seen quite a lot of people be made redundant, especially in kind of like design and tech areas and industry. And so actually, I feel a lot more confident in my ability to grow my business and make money, which I was so chuffed when I realized that that actually was true. There are definitely struggles I find with working for myself. And I've mentioned this before on my podcast, but me and my husband both work for ourselves. And so that brings lots of positives as well, but also its own unique set of struggles. But on the whole, I'm really enjoying sort of the direction that my business is going in. So at the moment, it is still just me in my business. And then I do pay a couple of freelancers for some extra support. So I guess I've kind of like got a small, very small freelance team that support me on a regular basis. And if you've listened to the podcast for a while, you'll know who those are. So first up, we have Lucy, who is my podcast editor. She edits all of my guest episodes and has been doing for the last like 4 years. I've worked with her for such a long time. We have this great relationship, a great process, and it's working really well. And then secondly, my friend Lois works for me. She does a set number of hours for me each month. She also helps me with stuff to do with the podcast, but also just loads of other stuff in my business. She creates my brand guidelines because I don't enjoy doing that. And so, yeah, lots of different things. So I have kept my business small. Now, when I was at university, the aspiration of a lot of people was to grow their own agency and have a team. And that was never really my goal, although I can totally see why it is some people's goal. And I can totally see how I could easily have sort of felt like I had to go in that direction. But I think a few years ago, I realized that that wasn't really for me, and that actually I did not have aspirations to grow my business really big in terms of a team. I think I do have aspirations to grow my business in terms of income. And I've sort of slowly been working on that over the years, like increasing my prices, getting more productive, outsourcing some of the tasks that I don't need to be doing. So, I definitely do have growth goals, but they're just not big agency growth goals. They are more, like keep it small, but I guess grow in impact and income. And again, with the income thing, I mean, this is personal to everybody. My income sort of goals are probably quite modest compared to others. But yeah, it's working really well for me and I really enjoy it. I think some of the struggles that I kind of still grappling with and coming to terms with is that mindset of, I guess it's that freelancer mindset, isn't it? Of like, when is the next job going to come in? Is this it? Is everything drying up? As I mentioned earlier, I don't feel that quite as keenly as I used to, partly because I kind of have evidence of the contrary. So stuff has carried on coming in. I have had a few blips in the last couple of years where I've been like, oh, I'm getting nervous now, but nothing too major. And I do feel confident that, if all of my branding work dried up, for example, I could pivot, I could try a new offer, like there's different things I could do. And I do feel confident that I would find other ways to bring money into my business, or I would tweak my marketing, my messaging, maybe target a new audience. So that is really positive. But there is still that kind of like underlying, like, oh, is this all going to dry up at some point? I try not to dwell on it too much, but it can be exhausting sometimes, like having that underlying fear, even if it is small. I think one of the things that I really struggle with as well is just really switching off from my business and taking a break. Part of it is because I genuinely really enjoy it and love it, and I find it really creative and I really enjoy spending time on it. But I also think part of it is that slightly unhealthy mindset as well of, well, if I'm not working on this, I'm not going to make any money. So, yeah, that is I guess one of the downsides of keeping it smaller and not having a big team. If I am not working, not that I'm not making money, but there's less opportunities for me to make money if I am not working. But I definitely do try and schedule in really clear breaks. So like in the summer, Christmas, I do take a lot of time off. Like I actually feel like I have a really nice work life blend, should we say, on the whole. I'm not sure balance is like achievable, but definitely blend. I take time off in the day to do things. I sometimes work at weekends if I feel like I want to. Yeah, I like the blend. One of the things that I have thought about at times is whether I should get a studio space or an office space that's like external from my home. And I think there would be benefits to that, but I do really like the flexibility and the benefits of working from home. So I don't think I'm going to do that. Although I do look at other people with studios and I'm like, oh, that does look nice. But I kind of just like all of my stuff here and nearby. But I think, again, makes it a little bit harder to completely switch off. The temptation to work in the evenings is pretty high. So, yeah, I think I constantly need to be working on that balance in some way, shape, or form. But on the whole, really happy with how my business is going. And I've actually interviewed someone on the podcast kind of all about this, about, that it doesn't have to be about growing an agency, growing a big company. It can just be about choosing to work for yourself. And I know that Paul Jarvis has an amazing book called Company of One that is really talking about that and is really inspiring. And I think ultimately, I just am constantly reminded, that we are all different and we have to build the businesses that feel good to us. And then get us excited. And I feel really glad that I've kind of worked out what I like, I've worked out what I want to do, I've worked out how I enjoy working. Like, I think a goal for me eventually, and I am a bit frustrated with how slowly I am achieving this goal. A goal for me eventually would be able to have more budget, to have more support from like Lois. So to have her doing some more hours each month in my business. So that's something that I'm working towards. But on the whole, I do not want my business to grow in terms of like number of people any further than it currently is. So, yeah, that's kind of where things are at in my business. I would love to know if you have any questions about this, because I feel like I could definitely record some more episodes that are a bit more behind the scenes of how I run my business and decisions that I've made, maybe how I've diversified my income, the different ways that I make money. So let me know if there's anything that you'd like to know, any questions that you'd like me to answer. I'm going to record another episode next week that is going to be a bit of a reflection on the year and, yeah, what's gone well, what hasn't gone well, a bit of a sort of summary round out of the year. But I hope you enjoy these little snippets of behind the scenes of my business and what it's like. And I would love to hear your thoughts on the solo episodes as well, because it is quite a different format from the interview episodes on the podcast, but I am really enjoying doing them. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. Thank you so much for listening. Come let me know what you think. I'm at Liz M. Mosley or at Building Your Brand Podcast on Instagram, and I love chatting to you about all of these things.